when we started, thinking about what aspects of mobile enterprise might be interesting for the audience today, we thought, we'll talk about 4 different dimensions. Firstly, the issue of fragmentation, not only for operating systems, but devices and applications, some of which Christy alluded to as part of multi-tenancy. The other thing which I think is crucial for us to debate is on mobile device virtualization and security for a variety of reasons, including consumers and the enterprises using apps which are of sensitive nature, to employees bringing their devices and data to the enterprise as companies allow that as part of cost-cutting measures. Mobile, the landscape is constantly evolving, and that's not only true of the device side or the application side. There's a lot going on in terms of the networks as well. Devices are becoming contextually aware. The network speeds are, escalating. So what implications does it have as we talk about the enterprise? I think that's a crucial topic as well to debate. Finally, last but not the least, user experience is a critical element of the entire experience as we debate about, are the users consuming these apps in the way they want to? Are the enterprise benefiting from it in the way they envision? So we'll hone on to these individual topics and then have a set of questions, and after that we'll open this to the audience.
So I'm going to use that time to talk about a very important topic, which is this delicate balance, an all-important balance between security approaches and usability, which is especially important when it comes to mobility. So in a lot of the solutions that have arisen around managing mobility in the enterprise, the focus has been on security, which is very important. But in all of that, the most important element, which is the user, has somewhat gotten left behind. So circa 2010, not in the not too distant past, MDM solutions, mobile device management solutions, were all the rage, where enterprises thought, let's place an MDM profile, an MDM agent on a user's device, and everything would be hunky-dory. We can remotely manage it, wipe it, and et cetera, et cetera. But MDM solutions, as you know, give you a little more reach than what just belongs to the enterprise, into a user's personal content and apps and so on. And users obviously did not like that. The experience was, well, you interpret. Then enterprises thought, why not place, why run anything on a user's device that belongs to the enterprise anyways, and have everything run in a data center? As we saw yesterday, if something runs in a data center, it's probably going to run on Windows or Linux. And if it is going to do that, one, you're going to require network connectivity to be able to relay frames over H.264 encoding or what have you. And second, anything that runs on Windows or Linux, well, the user interface almost always requires a mouse, and we don't have anything along those lines on touch devices. So that experience sucked, and users were not very happy. Then came virtualization. People thought, let's just run multiple VMs on a phone, one to house your personal apps and personal content, and one to house sensitive business content and business apps. And running multiple virtual machines on hardware at the level of a phone's hardware, which is only now coming up to par with desktops and laptops, was not very efficient. And then there were all these issues around sensors and device arbitrage, which made for a very sucky experience as well. Then enterprises thought maybe we should put a PIM container, a personal information management container, and put all the business apps and business content into that container. And now the user ends up switching back and forth between 2 areas of the device. As you might agree, nowadays it's no longer about work-life balance, but it's about work-life integration. We need all our apps and all our content, email, et cetera, all in one place so that we don't have to switch back and forth between. So that experience didn't go too far either. Then came dual personas, same problem, multiple logins onto the same device. This is not Windows we're talking about, this is iOS and Android, so that didn't work out. What has happened most recently, and what's beginning to take hold now, is this notion of app wrapping and data wrapping. And I think Christy mentioned that very well in her closing points as well, which is placing security controls around just those apps and just that data that require protection and leaving everything else alone, thereby enabling the commingling of personal information and business information, boosting a user's productivity and experience.
I wanted to just share a framework. I've been in this space for about 5 years deep. Previously to Neustar, I was head of mobile at SAP and head of mobile at Sybase before that, before we got acquired. It's interesting thing to having this topic this time around is to reflect on how this market has really transformed in the last 4 or 5 years. Before, I used to throw up this chart at the beginning on a whiteboard when I'm talking to a CIO, say, okay, what kind of company do you want to be? Right? Are you a regulated, non-regulated industry? Do you want your devices to be corporate and employee liable? The reality is that it used to be, okay, I can draw a dot or maybe like an area. Today, it's going to be much, much wider. You may have a corporate liable device that's a phone, but an employee liable tablet that they bring into enterprise, and then there's the watch, there's the wearables, everything that Christy talked about. The conversation is no longer that simple anymore. So the three questions that, and I have three questions that everyone should ask and three suggestions for how you should frame the solution. So number one is, what are you protecting? I will argue that it's impossible for you to fully protect from malicious employees, right? You can't protect someone who wants to take data to take it away from you, especially when you've already given them access, right? You know, there was one story, this company, they had this very security conscious guy, and he wants to lock down the device, I want to make sure corporate email cannot get sent out from the inbox using Gmail. I said, well, it's an interesting policy. What do you guys do on the desktop? Oh, we do nothing, right? You can literally copy and paste, take a screenshot from Outlook, send it out from Gmail on the desktop. I said, all right, why is that desktop any different than your device? Well, device is less secure. Well, they're protecting the wrong thing. So number one, what are you protecting? Are you protecting behavior? Are you protecting data? Figure that out. Number two, how much control do you have? And there are laws out there now that says, in California, there was just a decision by I think the appeals court that says, you know, companies need to compensate their employees for BYOD usage of their devices, right? So you have to decide in the law, in the jurisdiction that you're in, how much control you have and how much control can you exert on these devices and those applications. And then remember that there's also a hidden cost of BYOD. I spoke to a CIO. They thought they used savings as a justification, but then part of their BYOD plan, they compensated for the data plan. Well, data plans are kind of expensive now, and when you give it to 50,000 employees to buy their own personal data plan, you don't get the aggregated cost savings of your purchasing department going to a T-Mobile or AT&T or Verizon negotiating for that deal.
I think there's a few interesting things about the technologies that are emerging right now and the implications that they have for supporting mobility in the enterprise. One thing that we've been noticing is that, you know, connection bandwidth is no longer an issue for mobility, but connectivity, reliability, coverage, availability are still a problem with mobility. So when you are delivering a mobility solution, we no longer have to worry about when we have a connection, is it fast enough to get the data down? We can stream video on mobile connections without any trouble. But if you've got people out in a field and that field's in rural Nebraska, then you've got problems with connectivity. And if they're on a plane, you still have problems with connectivity. So any solutions that we have to build to this set of problems have to cope with the intermittent availability of connectivity. The other trend that we're seeing, there's an awful lot of enterprises who are building an awful lot of applications internally, and those applications are not being driven by IT, they're being driven by the lines of business who have back-end systems of their own and that want the people in their organization to have a workflow that uses their piece of the system. And yet, often IT are still expected to be the people who deal with the application management on users' devices. They're the people who are expected to handle the infrastructure for the delivery of these applications and the operation of these applications, even though the apps are being written within the lines of business. And these business applications are invariably needing to talk to back-end systems, whether those are traditional behind the firewall back-end systems or whether they're something in the cloud. We've got to find a way to authenticate individuals into these back-end systems in a way that's unobtrusive. We're used to a very free-flowing user interface, user experience on these mobile devices, where I don't have any interference as I move from app to app to app. If those apps require me to deliver a KCD ticket to that server and a SAML assertion to that server, and the enterprise wants me to authenticate myself to the applications before they give me access to any of this, I need to be able to deliver that in a way that doesn't intrude in the user's experience, because otherwise we can never really get the benefit of the productivity of putting this workflow onto a mobile device. So the other thing that I think is important to understand when we're rolling out mobility is we have to make use of the right technologies to get people the applications that they need. You know, there's millions of applications. It's close to 2 million apps on the Apple App Store. It's 1.7 million, I think, currently on the Google Play Store. So, you know, but most of my employees only need 10 of those. Now, which 10 they need depends on their rank in the organization, on their role in the organization, on their region that they operate in. And so being able to ensure that my teams, whatever the workflow they have to perform in the field, I give them the set of tools to complete that workflow. That's a very important thing. And so I think, you know, understanding how you expect people to use these workflows in practice, you know, we're going to bring together a set of tools to let somebody get their job done. That set of tools has to work consistently together. But I have to make sure that not only am I pushing out 10 applications that I think they need, but I understand how they're using those and which bits are getting in the way of the user experience. Are there bottlenecks that people just can't get over? Because, as we mentioned in the last talk, this is what causes people to forward it to Gmail. This is what causes people to do an end run around your security. People don't want to do an end run around your security. They want to get their job done. So we've got to have insight and analytics into how people are using this stuff. Is it reliable enough? Is it giving them the experience that they need? Because without that analytics, we can't have understanding of whether we're spending our money in the right place.
I have the advantage of the problem of working for a software company and being exposed to the most varied industries, like people from even from the gaming industry and from the finance industry on the other side. And I've been exposed, or we've been exposed to different trends in technology. So I'm going to talk about probably 3 things, and I'll try to keep it short. So the first 2 are probably about consumer. And we're talking about mobility, so not talking about consumers, even though we are, with our thoughts in the enterprise, it's probably impossible not to do. So the first thing I want to talk about is a new trend, which we call better life, which is how we keep track of our health, our finance, and everything around our life, and these new digital services and gadgets that enable us to be able to do so. And probably the most important thing that I see as a byproduct of this better life of using smartwatches or fitness trackers is that this is not just about the gamifying experience that we're all used to, about getting the steps or getting my stuff done, but it's also about embracing the concept of having this mentor-pupil relationship. So we are collaborating and we are embracing our peers and our mentors in this mentor-pupil relationship. So the second thing I want to talk about is UbiTech, or the ubiquity of technology. Christy said it very well a moment ago. It's not just about putting a small black box in our pockets. Technology is pervasive, and it's everywhere. And it's not just about our phones. It's about every time some of these connected devices are personal, like our watches. Some of them stay in our desktop. Some of them are not ours, are tracking our movements and everybody's movements. And all of this is generating information. I think the pervasiveness of technology will continue to grow as more connected devices are enabled by technology and geographical barriers dissolve. The last one is probably to the point, to the enterprise transformation. And we've seen it all the time. The enterprise is trying to play catch with the consumer world. This is okay, but the thing is that this window is getting shorter. If you think about how long it took from the web to the intranet, it's nothing compared to the mobility and enterprise mobility. So every effort we've seen so far or most of the efforts that we've seen so far on the enterprise mobility have been probably focused towards communication and making processes more effective, bringing applications and content that already existed in the enterprise to a mobile device. But the thing is that the fundamental change is yet to come, and enterprise mobility will change the way we do work in the enterprise, as it has been doing for the consumer world for the past 5 or 10 years.